Apparently we're just popping up like daisies. Hello YouTube, my name is Parsifal, and today I'm going to be addressing something that's mislabeled as a trend. Recently there have been a lot more information, a lot more videos, a lot more content about dissociative identity disorder that's been popping up lately. These things range from educational videos to videos of switches caught on camera to articles about this disorder to varying other amounts of information. I've seen this labeled as a trend, and I find that endlessly frustrating, so today I'm going to be breaking down some of these reasons why it would be labeled as a trend. I know this disorder is already kind of a controversial topic, but it really shouldn't be. And I'm going to be providing some more information that may clear up any foggy opinions. So first off, this disorder is not as rare as people tend to think it is. I know 1 to 3% of the population seems like a very small amount of people. But think about it. There are about, 7 billion people in the world at this point, and 1 to 3% of that population is millions. This is the same amount of people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia, and also the same amount of people who have red hair. Now I'd like you to think about how many redheads you know. So to put it in easier terms, 1 to 3% of the population is about 1 or 3 people out of 100 people. So honestly, it's not as rare as it seems. This is also not a new disorder. You see cases dating back to the Renaissance times, where this was labeled more so as possession rather than a disorder of the mind. Some of these first ones were recorded in 1791 with a woman in Germany, and 1863 with a man in France. I'll put my sources down in the description below so you can look at these as well. People with D.I.D were generally labeled to be possessed or in need of some sort of religious help when it came to the past, but this has since been abolished since it's clearly not being possessed, and it is definitely a disorder of the mind. Another thing I've encountered is that many people think that it's only young white people who have dissociative identity disorder. I know it's a bit hypocritical of me to be saying this right now, being a young white person, but there are very many people of color who have it as well. I know 2 of them on campus, and I'm roommates with one of them. And this is just in our very small little college environment that I happened to stumble upon. And recently, about in 2015, there were 2 cases that were found in Korea as well. This is unusual to see from Asia, because typically dissociative identity disorder is seen as something called possession disorder. I think that's a bit strange, although some societies are a little bit more religiously inclined, so they may be more likely to believe it's possession rather than a mental disorder when it comes to something so profound like switching identities. However, I think the only trend that I'm really seeing here is D.I.D being misdiagnosed as possession. D.I.D itself is not a trend. And furthermore, it's not just young people being diagnosed with D.I.D. There are many people in their middle ages, elderly ages, or even younger children who are being diagnosed currently, and that comes with better healthcare, better therapists, and people who are more well-informed about this. There are many cases you can read about where people have been diagnosed later in life, first of which being the 3 Faces of Eve. Her case is a very well-known one, and there's a lot of information out there about it, including books, documentaries, and many articles, so if you just pop that into a Google search, you can learn about her as well. I think I'll also put a link to one of her articles in the description. But one thing I found is that once I entered the D.I.D community on social media, I saw people of varying ages. There were some in their 50s, some in their 70s, and some younger than me. And these are just in support groups on Facebook. Although one thing I've found is that this younger generation tends to be a lot more vocal about things. I believe this has to do with being millennials and being oppressed as we are enough already. We kind of have to advocate for our very existences, so advocating for our mental ailments is just another notch on the belt. We have more access to social media, which connects us to more people, which connects us to more people like us. We can find communities, make them, be a part of them, and become advocates ourselves if we so choose. And through social media, we can learn, and we can teach, and we can really be ourselves. So, in reality, you know a lot more people with D.I.D than you think you do, most of which are in the closet about it. This disorder is a very big thing to tell someone. So of course a lot of people don't want to scare anyone away, and they want to keep it under wraps and keep it very subtle, so that they don't raise a lot of waves and cause any discomfort to their friends or family members. Contrary to what a lot of people think, people who are diagnosed with D.I.D can lead very full, very rewarding lives. We're not entirely controlled by our disorders, and we can do basically anything that anybody else can do, sometimes even more. I've read about people who've become doctors, therapists, teachers, led any career that they wanted to, despite the fact that they have DID. So for some skeptics out there, I'm not going to name any names, but people with DID don't simply sit around and wallow in their depression and switch in the privacy and darkness of their homes. We enjoy living life as well. Granted, there are some people who do fake it on the internet, but after a while this kind of dies down. People who have faked this disorder realize what they've done and how it's wrong and how they have been led down a wrong path, and they usually tend to stop. And to anyone who happens to see this and is faking DID, I would suggest you get some help. So in conclusion, DID is not rare. It shouldn't be controversial. It's been around for many hundreds of years. It affects all sorts of demographics all around the world, and people with it make up a very large portion of this world's population. So thank you all for watching me rant. If there's anything else you'd like to know, please don't hesitate to ask. And I'll see you all in the next video.